watching the sun.
So what's up, everybody? So hey, look at that. I'm losing my camera. Well, there we go. Let's put it just like that. There you go. Hopefully everyone can see me. I think you can. So, you know, really, I can't even take the credit for noticing that Shawn Ryan, who admits in a couple different places to Mike Ritland and Tucker Carlson, that he lived in Colombia for between 4 and 5 years.
I was like, I don't want to be anywhere near Americans at all. And so I checked a lot of spots out around Colombia. I went to Cali, I went to Pereira, I went to Medellin, and then camped out in Medellin for about 4 years. And
doing what?
Doing what? Living a rock star life. Became a big rush, buying and sourcing and cocaine, and so that's how I would get my thrills. And
Was that what you were doing for a living?
No, it wasn't for a living, man. It was for the rush. And so, you know, I've talked about this on a couple of other podcasts, but you know, there's a lot of like rumors going around there that I was down there working for CIA, setting up these drug networks, when yes, they do that. But no, I was by myself on my own program. And I've always been fascinated with narcos and kingpins and cartels. And it's like, it was a major rush for me to go into the worst neighborhoods in Colombia and start setting up networks.
And so I brought down a camera guy, and we met with Ed Calderon, and some of the topics that we wanted to cover was the border, the immigration, migrant camps, some cartel stuff, and then anything else that we had time to cover.
I mean, the cartel showed up and said, you can't sleep here, move along, basically.
Wow. Why do you think the cartel didn't want them
Porque el
there?
cartel no nos quería ir. La atención que iba a llamarnos, que la prensa que llegara.
A lo mejor eso que los daña ahí. Pero la verdad las cosas, nosotros no sabíamos nada, nosotros lo que dijimos que ya estábamos descansando y solo estuvimos...
They didn't want to do anything, they just wanted to rest.
But when the cartel came, how many of them were there? How many of them were there? How was the presentation?
¿Cómo sabías que eran malandros? ¿Salieron con
No, de repente llegó un compa y dice... una hora nomás dice, no, dice, a levantarlos los van a dar unos camiones para meterlos no sé a dónde, porque no los quieren ver acá.
Okay, so he said that a single individual showed up with a warning to move along, that they didn't want him there. And when they say they didn't want them there, I mean the owners of Culiacán.
Okay. O sea, el gobernador de ahí dijo, no, pues le mandaron que no querían ver esa gente acá y que vieran qué hacían.
Chasing Colombian chicks down who are arguably hot. I mean, it would be hard to find people. If you've seen any of their beauty pageant contestants, it would be hard to find someone that didn't find Colombian women attractive. They definitely are, from a male perspective. And as a male, if you're going to that country specifically to chase women and go out and deal in drugs, the motivation factor to learn Spanish is going to be high. And if you're there for 4 to 5 years and you are someone that is as motivated as a United States Navy SEAL, pretty high on the motivational scale, you're going to develop a rudimentary understanding of Spanish. And then one of my commenters, one of the people that is on my channel a lot, and I'm going to post the screenshot of the comment, pointed out that it's odd that somebody like Shawn, who Navy SEALs are basically alpha males, would let someone like Ed Calderon sit there and speak to a Honduran set of immigrants instead of asking his own questions for himself. That's just crazy. Hey, Shawn, because you and your production staff have blown me off for quite a while, I've got emails going back to both of you guys, especially you, for well over a year, going on 2 years now. Why is it you don't speak Spanish well enough after having lived in Colombia for 4 to 5 years, chasing Colombian women and going around doing Colombian stuff in terms of drugs? Unless, of course, the CIA is still your employer and you can't talk about what you were doing in Colombia, and so you needed to come up with something and just got yourself caught in a lie, because there's no reason on your own video you wouldn't be asking your own questions in Spanish when you're perfectly capable of doing as much. Kind of weird, right? I thought so too. So do other people. And it hadn't really occurred to me, but then I hadn't really challenged or questioned your level of proficiency in Spanish, because I just kind of take it as a given. I speak Spanish fluently. In fact, I speak Spanish every single day. And you living in Colombia would definitely speak that level of Spanish unless you weren't doing what you said you were doing in Colombia. And I know this because my ex-wife is Russian, and I went out of my way not to speak Russian in Mexico well in excess of 10 years in terms of not wanting to speak Russian, because it just brought up a bunch of horrible memories for me. And I still have a level of command over Russian to where if I wanted to ask somebody something basic in Russian, I could definitely do so, even if I hadn't spoken the language in well over a decade. And so it's kind of crazy. I mean, I can go to New York and have conversations in Russian with my Uber driver, but you can't ask somebody if cartel is present when you're down there shooting exactly that and have run in drug circles in Colombia. You know, and I used to be weirded out by you not wanting to talk to me, but now that I start seeing all of this and just little details become apparent, how it is Canadian 24-year-olds are on your show being presented as the leader in all things cartel, and then Vincent Vargas in charge of everything over at DHS and everything. You know, I grew up crawling around in my dad's Marine Corps boots. I grew up with the idea of mom, apple pie, baseball, and everything related with God being the best thing ever before my parents got divorced. And so I come up and I still have these fundamental beliefs, but when I watch what it's morphed into, protecting all the politicians being bought and paid for, the military being given away, and then people such as yourself, you can't even be honest about whether or not you were in Colombia, speaking Spanish with Colombian women and running drugs or not. And then you get to Mexico with Ed and you can't even ask your own questions. Shawn Ryan. Directly to you. I've been pretty upfront and abrasive about, hey, Vince and Shawn Ryan, I know you both are or were or continue to be employees of the United States federal government. I went down to fight Mexican drug cartels in good faith because I don't like the idea of children being given drugs by anyone, much less by people that represent the United States government, per Hector Bareilles, and he's sitting right there in front of a current federal agent saying all of this, and nothing's being done about any of it by the people in charge of doing something about it, which would be conceivably either you or Vincent Vargas. You know, I think I'm just going to cut the video off at that. Be in the world and not of it. This is God's world, and He allows what's going on in it to go on, and I don't understand all of it. I don't understand what the answers are to some of it. But there's one thing that's for sure, Shawn. You sure as shit either speak Spanish if you're down in Mexico chasing Colombian women for 4 or 5 years and running drugs. Definitely to the point to where you should be able to speak to 2 Honduran immigrants on your video. Or you're down there doing stuff for the CIA and everything's a cover story and your platform is basically one big lie just to get people to think whatever the United States government wants them to think. Pick one. Because it isn't both. You either speak Spanish. Crazy. I would love to hear you. In fact, I'm going to right now, as soon as I get off this, look for examples of you speaking Spanish. Because thus far, I've only been doing videos for about 2 years now. And there are already several instances of me either speaking Russian, either speaking Spanish, speaking English, openly to where people can sit there. And I've even seen people comment on it in the comment section, telling me whether I speak well or not in any one of the above languages. And so it's kind of weird that you will have this channel of yours now, I think, for the better part of a decade. If there are any instances of someone that spent 5 years of their life in Colombia running around with Colombian women and dealing drugs, your words, Tucker Carlson, Mike Ritland podcast, are there any examples of Shawn Ryan speaking Spanish? It's a great question. You know, you start connecting all the dots. Fernando Puentes being on Camp Gagnon, everything, the whole thing, man. You know, I'm not afraid of evil, dude. Not at all. And if you're the master of secret combinations, you're evil. You know? All of us are ultimately going to go home to our Father and stuff like that, but we own the consequences of our actions in every moment. And you have a choice of whether to try to be part of the correct, right, truthful path or not. And just my commenter, one of my followers pointing that out yesterday, just really kind of just made something click about you, Shawn. I'm happy you're sober if you are sober. Same with for Vince. But if you're sitting here making things up, trying to diminish the freedom of the American people in as much as you are not allowing them to see the truthfulness of things and make up their minds, that's something that's incongruent with freedom, man. And so I have to say something. Cheers.
It's Bud the Spud from the bright red mud, rolling down a highway smiling. The Spuds are big on the back of Bud's rig. They're from Prince Edward Island. They're from Prince Edward Island. Now from Charlottetown or from Summerside, they load him down for the big long ride. He jumps in the cab and he's off with the prides of Biggles. He's got to catch the boat to make Clementine, and he hits up that old New Brunswick line. To Montreal he comes just a-flying with another big load of potatoes. It's Bud the Spud from the bright red mud, rolling down the highway smiling. The Spuds are big on the back of Bud's rig. They're from Prince Edward Island. They're from Prince Edward Island. Now the Ontario Provincial Police don't think much of Bud. Yeah, the cops have been looking for the son of a gun that's been ripping the tire off the 401. They know the name on the truck shines up in the sun. Green Gables.